Okay, so today I am going to talk about an issue that can cause a lot of problems when a newly licensed loan officer decides to go to work for a retail lender. And I'm sure there's going to be pushback from the retail lenders, just like I got pushback when I had a problem I identified for a newly licensed MLO to go to work for a broker. I'm more than happy to have the pushback. Either comment here, reach out to me on Facebook. My goal is to make a smooth career for that newly licensed loan officer. It's a very difficult market now, and I don't want to make it any harder than necessary for your newly licensed MLOs. Now, I understand they got to work somewhere, and that no channel is perfect. Before I get into the issue with the retail environment, I'm going to give a brief summary of the video I made saying what the problem was for the new person to go into the broker channel. And the problem is that in the broker channel with a lot of lenders, you're dependent on the account executive. When you have a difficult scenario, you go to the account executive, and they then, either from their own knowledge or from checking at their lender owner, their wholesale lender, they come back to the new loan officer and give you an answer. Yes, this scenario can work. Or if they say no, that's fine. But if they say yes, you go ahead, you package up the loan, you send it in. And then most of the account executives, they're not determined to keep their word. So maybe they made a mistake. Maybe they were told it was okay. Everything seemed fine. Somebody in management decided they didn't like it, the scenario. And very few account executives are really concerned with keeping their word and going back to management saying, look, I told this loan officer it was fine. This is what you told me. Now, if you've changed your mind, okay, going forward, I'll know otherwise. But let's close this loan. Very few have the strength to go back or have the capability to go back to the lender and to keep the honor in the transaction. Now, the pushback that I got from the brokers was that a lot of them now do have the ability to contact an underwriter directly at the lender who is going to make the decision. One person said they can get a half hour with an underwriter at any of their lenders at any time they need it. And if that is available and that underwriter keeps their word, then that's wonderful, because now at the broker channel, you are more likely to have a variety of sources, a variety of underwriters where you can run the scenario by. You really only need one to say yes, but in the past video, I did always recommend having a backup lender just in case someone who has been good in the past falls on their face on a particular deal. And if you've been in the business for a long time, it almost always happens. Okay, I can count on one hand, dealing with well over 100 account executives and 100 companies, the people that went years and years and years and kept their word 100% of the time. So with the retail lender, before I tell you the problem that came up, I'm also going to give you a scenario which causes a lot of trouble, and this is where they ended up with trouble at this particular loan. Variable income. The borrower had been working part-time for a company for a long time, long enough not to have any worry about the length of employment or how long there had been variable income, say over a couple of years at least. But in the past 6 months or so, they had transitioned to become a full-time hourly employee, not salary, but hourly. And the verification of employment form came back, and it said that the borrower was guaranteed 40 hours. Well, the underwriter requested all the pay stubs from the time the individual had started working full-time until the date of application or the date that they were reviewing the file. And it turned out there was one pay stub that only showed 38 hours. The loan officer, to their credit, and this is someone who I was able to go check on an MLS, has worked for this lender for about 8 years, has been in the industry for 20 years, and I'm sure this is a good loan officer. They had called their underwriting scenario desk and had gone over the entire situation with the scenario desk and was told that it was acceptable. Now, I didn't get into, did they get it in writing? But what would clearly had happened, what the underwriter scenario desk said was acceptable, the underwriter who was making the decision on the file said it was not acceptable. And not only was it not acceptable, but they were going to be averaging in the period of time when they only worked part-time for the lender or only worked part-time for the company. See, variable income doesn't cause a lot of trouble if the person has been working for a couple of years variable income, and if the VOE says 40 hours guaranteed, but there's a week here or there with 38, 39, 37 hours, that doesn't detract much from the average. The underwriter can go back and they can choose to average year to date or year to date with a prior year or year to date with a prior 2 years. And it's rarely going to cause a problem because you've got a consistent period of time when they've been making mostly 40 hours, but occasionally have an hour here or an hour there. Now, where this problem comes in, and I know you experienced folks will know this most often, is in the beginning of when they start their hourly job, because they typically don't have any paid time off PTO. When some PTO is accumulated, if the borrower needs to be out for an hour or two, they have to take a child or themselves to a doctor's appointment or whatever it is, the paid time off kicks in. And those 2 hours that were out are taken from their paid time off. And so they still have the guaranteed hours. In this case, the hours were guaranteed, but they didn't take them. Now the loan officer was trying to say the week after they missed 2 hours that they had 2 hours of overtime, so that really it was 40 hours every week. Well, that wasn't a great argument because you're in a totally separate category of pay now, trying to use overtime that's almost never earned. So that wasn't going to work. Now, what can work in a situation like this is if now there is paid time off. There hadn't been any accumulated paid time off when the hours were missed, but now there is. And so if the employer will write a letter saying there is paid time off now, and so it's unlikely that that would happen again. But again, you're going to have discretion on this. This was an FHA loan, but you're going to have discretion on any agency as to whether or not an underwriter is going to accept it. So now here comes the big problem. This retail lender is a well-known, large, national retail lender, and their loan offices do not have the option to broker. Only non-QM they can broker. They can't broker agency loans. Now, I know a lot of retail lenders, you do have the ability to broker. I had a discussion with someone at this same retail lender a year and a half ago, and they said that now they had been granted the ability to broker because of the better pricing. But apparently now that's no longer in place. Now, perhaps the underwriter has the ability to go to different investors and in the background check and see if they can make this work with that one missing 2 hour week, say to only average in over the period of time where they've been full-time, this 5 or 6 months. So here we sit. Final answer hasn't come in. The stress is super high. The underwriter may not want to give in. The underwriter may or may not find an outlet independently, but the loan officer is pretty much SOL. The advice is always for the loan officer to escalate it to the underwriting manager, escalate it to the national credit manager. Now, maybe this loan officer will get the job done. I think they're a very solid loan officer. But if you're new, what you need two things. You need somebody to watch every one of your loans as though it was their own. You don't need a scenario desk where you can call and ask a question when there's something that you may forget to ask. You don't know what you don't know. You don't need somebody who's available to answer your questions, your mentor, your manager. You need a person who is going to watch every single one of your loans as though it's their own loan. They look at the credit report. They look at the tax returns. They look at the AUS findings, and they watch you like a hawk. And then the second item you need, whether you work for a broker or whether you work for a retailer, is some pathway where if there's a question, and you're going to have the most experienced loan officers in the world, the best loan officers in the world, there's not going to be certainty on every loan. There's going to be underwriter discretion. So there has to be a way for that person working with you to obtain certainty for you. Now, whether that's talking to the underwriter directly at one of the wholesale lenders if you're a broker, whether that is talking to your pre-approval underwriting desk at a retail lender or talking to the underwriter directly, you need some way. You want to keep it in writing, and the company has got to have the honor that if they told you they're going to do it and all the facts continue to line up, and it's exactly what you said the situation is, turns out what the situation is. The VOSE says the hours are guaranteed, for example, even though 1 week was short 2 hours. If you have that in writing in a transcript from you to the underwriting scenario desk, and you can count on the lender to back that up, then it's fine. So those two things, someone to watch you closely and some mechanism to make sure that when you're told what is going to be done, that it's done. Otherwise, you're going to be out there, you're going to be busting your butt. You're going to be trying to get a loan in. I see so many loan officers, they've been in the business 7 months, they've closed one loan, they're thinking of getting out, they're working a part-time job. After all that effort, you just can't afford to have your company not watch you closely and not provide a pathway where you can get a scenario in detail and know that their word is going to be kept so that you can close that loan and so that realtor or other professional who gave you a chance with a referral is comfortable coming back to you. I can only imagine if that person who's been in 7 months and has closed one loan and finally gets a second loan that blows up in their face, it's probably going to be the end of their career. People can only take so much. So you're still going to need those two factors, the person who watch you closely and the pathway to get an honorable and concrete answer. But if you'd like to get to that point faster, I do have an educational program. It is hard work, but if you'll put the time in, I can help you get to the point faster where you don't need to be watched closely. You'll know what you don't know, and you'll be now able to take over and either contact that underwriter at the brokerage or the underwriter at your retail place or your scenario desk, whether it's with a wholesaler or with a retailer. And you'll be able to now take on that function where you don't have to be so dependent on someone to watch your work. You can reach me at Alan, ALAN, at the THEComplete1003.com. You can check out the program for yourself at the THEComplete1003.com. And I'd be happy to meet with you and just show you what we have, and you can make a determination as to whether or not we can help further your career. That's it for today.